30 years now you've been doing this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and, let's talk about art. Let's talk about art the revolution, man.
Right on.
Stencils. Stencils are cool.
Oh, stencils, yeah.
Stencils are cheap. You can make a stencil like nothing. Can of spray paint. Boom! Your message is on the streets. Yeah. Just saying. Talk about memes and repetition of images and stuff.
That's true. Yeah. It's weird. In New York when I was a kid, I used to see a lot of street art and a lot of graffiti and a lot of posters, and people would CBGB shows and all this stuff, but there was also like actual graffiti on the Lower East Side and all this stuff. And now in these cities, a lot of them you can't really do that. It's harder, so it's even more revolutionary.
Yeah, they're watching you. They'll find you. They'll arrest you and stuff.
Yeah, but I do think that the street level art and the sort of keeping it like at that level, I think it does influence the larger culture. It's just are we going to get another Keith Haring? I don't know. You know what I mean? Because if you tried to paint on the subways in New York now, you know what I mean, you'd probably be at Rikers for a while. Things are different. So
well, and street art is great because it's so accessible.
That's
you don't
true.
have to go to a museum. You might accidentally just be walking to the bus station and see something that forces you to think for a second. And God, we all hate that, but it does happen, and you should be prepared for it.
Absolutely.
We've got, we do quite a bit of artistic things with VSI, and we've got a couple of projects, not VSI related, but definitely Vermin Supremaverse related. We're working on a graphic novel that myself and Tyler, Lindsay, and Thomas can't ever figure out how to pronounce your name. We need to sit down and have a conversation about that so that I can feel less like an asshole every time it happens. So we've got that. We've got the RPG that we're working on.
Role playing game, that is, not rocket propelled grenade.
Yes, of course, rocket propelled grenade. What else would it be?
We are working on a rocket-propelled grenade, of course, for under the Vermin Supreme brand. That's very exciting, also. But the role-playing game is very fun, also. We want to satisfy all the nerd subcultures that are my base, that I love so very much, that make America such a beautiful tapestry. And of course, those who love comics and graphic novels and comic art and all those things. Yes, for sure. And yeah. And of course, there's iPony. Oh yeah, artists. I know some artists. I work for. Oh jeez, we're turning into a whole shilly infomercial now. Look out!
It's a big part of being an artist.
And you like art? We like. There's all art. Oh, you know where there's some really nice art up on our merch site, up on our merchandise site.
It's very true. It's very true. Wear your art. It's the only way to really express it. Oh yes, of course.
You like art? There's some art for you.
I could be wrong. Was that Monet?
It was, yeah.
That's clearly Vincent.
That is clearly art. That's clearly art. We know that.
Mike Flugenhog, a famous anarchist poster artist out of New York, where he this is a takeoff, a spoof of one of his own posters from the 70s or the 80s, the Mobilization for Global Nuclear Disarmament or something like that. It was a huge march on DC, and he made an official poster, and he made this takeoff for the book.
Nice.
That's awesome.
This is the cover art on this that's Seth Tabachman. He is an anarchist artist out of New York. He was involved in World War III comics back in the 70s and 80s and 90s. And so I was super blessed when I wrote this book. I asked some of these people, because those are some of my artist heroes that I could never ask for to do art for my campaign, because that would have been super tacky. But for the book, I was able to offer them at least a 1%, and it was like, oh, okay, cool, and that was good. Tony Millionaire.
Oh wow, that's cool.
He had the Drinky Crow Show. It was
really
live for a while. Is the artist of this. He's a local boy, local to my hometown.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I didn't even know that.
So yeah, Amazing stuff. Beautiful Rod Weber collage.
Oh, yep. The Notorious.
It is notorious.
Nina Paley,
That's
famous. She's a famous cartoonist animator. She appeared on the Jerry Springer episode with our cult that time.
Oh, really?
That I've since denounced for political reasons, and also a turf.
oh,
Not, but John Hagen Benner from the Church of the Subgenius. Amazing.
oh, right
art.
on.
Nice. Nice.
Oh no, actually that's not his. That's Mary. That's Margot Huffiness Keene. I'm sorry, my bad.
Oh,
Margot Huffiness Keene came at us through a gentleman in Virginia who was doing printing for the campaign last cycle. But that's some amazing stuff.
Have you ever done anything with Church of the Subgenius, Vermin?
I certainly have the Church of Subgenius background back in the 80s in Baltimore, Maryland. I knew Technical VA Convenience, and that's where I briefly met Stang and some of the other folks, Harper Barnes.
Nice.
It was a very strong clench. There you go. There's John Hagen Benner with a depiction of the zombie facilities.
The zombies. Yeah,
of course.
that's beautiful.
The turbine
And
facility.
then his daughter does some parts for here. Dale Rawlings, who from Republican Jesus, he has a comic book. So that was the fun thing about when I finished this book. I just said, "Well, who's been doing fan art lately?" And just asked him if they would do an illustration for the book. It was very cool.
Right on.
It is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin O'Malley, I went to school with that. He's an actual children's illustrator. He did this illustration. I said it needs to be more gory. He threw in a little zombie arm. Quite frankly, I was a little embarrassed to include it, but I really, he's such a nice guy. I wanted to include it. Goodness, so much art. Oh, but all in the book, people. I'm sorry.
And you need to
great
get the book. Just throwing it out there.
Great book.
But you should
Yes.
get the book, love the book, be the book.
Art in the revolution, people. The revolution is now.
It is.
We're gonna make paintings of Molotov cocktails.
Yes. Yes, and RPGs.
And RPGs.
And that'll show them and get them visited by the Secret Service and stuff, probably.
Yes, absolutely. We'll
FBI or
see you
whatever.
on Monday.
Yeah, man.
Eric, how much time we still have?
We have 3 minutes, allegedly.
In Victoria,
It's expandable. We have time control. We have time machines that are.
Well, it looks like we're getting the production notes. We're looking for a transition, so we do have to transist.
would you like to? Could we squeeze in maybe one more poem?
All right.
Yeah.
Which one do you want me to do? This one or this one?
Let's do this one. Oh, well, no, go ahead and do this one.
Okay.
I get to pick, but that's not the dynamic of our relationship. I'm just throwing that out there.
Pick out the happy one. Pick us out the happy
The
one.
happy one?
Yes.
The happy
That would
life
be
of
really
everyone.
difficult. I've written like one happy poem in my whole life, but I'm learning. I'm working on
You
it.
need to start writing more happy poems.
I definitely
That's
do.
your homework assignment. Write a happy poem about how wonderful life is and how much you love living it. And
Yes.
and
So
all these
fake,
beautiful
Vermin.
things.
I will do it. All right. So this one is called Daily as a Noun. Sometimes, meaning often, I just do not know what to say, which is not to insinuate that there are no further thoughts beyond the double negative of stammers, too loud laughter, and painfully radiating silences. But see, I think maybe it's the grinding daily that separates us. You from me, and me from me, and all slumped shoulders from others slumping and slouching forth. When what rough beast wasn't soothed by a sharing of its ache? And shouldn't 2 or more rough slumps press such uneven parts together to thus not break against the wildness of these walls, these crying children, and I do care. This injured and injuring skin, these hitting and shrieking men, these searched and seized heartbeats, grinding daily, and all in all, slumped shoulders. But mine, so low, so shaky, that I can barely heave them up to meet the screaming sun as he yells that I have sinned before waking, before I knew myself as myself today. I imagine you drank your tea, sweetened with Machado's honey, brought to you by a warm hand and love-mussed hair and gentle eyes, a lover who wants you to sip it slowly at the window, to spy tiny birds at delicate work on small seed, thrown by loving hands that whisper often, grow. I hope this was your morning, for you, for me, for all and all, that such mornings might be possible somewhere in our wild and wilder Bethlehem. But all this daily noun gums up my mouth and I sputtering speak. I've developed a stutter in my old ache, so I just sit here in my sweating seat and say, yes, I'm doing fine. How are you?
Thank you very much. It was beautiful.
Well,
But
Victoria, that was a really nice poem. I want to say a really nice poem.
Uh-huh.
And there was a part of it that was really cheerful. Okay, there was this great, okay, there was a little bit of a downer, a little bit of buzzkill, and then it got to a really nice and happy, cheerful part about having tea, and it was very lovely. I enjoyed that, and then it got back to being a little bit of a buzzkill, and so I'm going to recommend that you concentrate on the happier parts and expand that, and then throw in a little negativity, an ironic jab here and there, maybe. But yeah,
I'll keep it in mind.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Vermin.
This has been
and thank you guys for having me.
Yes, thank you for coming. This has been a very wonderful panel, and I suppose our next guest needs no introduction because he's quite the character, and I believe that that we are being here he is.
Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. It's goat versus fish. Come now, fish. Come now, fish. Fish. It's time for the verses. It's time for the verses of goat versus fish. Yes. Look at the verses. Look directly into the goat and fish. Look directly into the goat and fish. Goat, fish. Yes, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish and vermin supreme. It's as if in a dream. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish and vermin supreme. What does that even mean? Goat versus fish brings the verses to you. We promise the verses we tell you are true. What's goat versus fish? You haven't a clue. But it is something to do. Do. It is something to do. Welcome to Goat versus Fish. Thank you, Vermin Supreme, for welcoming Goat versus Fish. It's Goat versus Fish and Vermin Supreme in Zombie Land. They go hand in hand. In hoof and in fin, Goat versus Fish and Vermin Supreme in Zombie Land. This was not even planned. Some say Goat versus Fish is a sham. It's true. Some say Goat versus Fish is a scam. Some say Goat versus Fish is just spam. But I am what I am. I am what I am. Let us hear it for Goat and Fish. Let us hear it for Goat and Fish. Let us hear it for all the Goat and Fish. Make some noise for the Goat. 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 Hey, let us see the Goat in chat. Let us see you all chatting for Goat. Celebration for Goat. Celebration for Goat. Celebration for Goat. And make some noise for the Fish. Make some noise for the Fish. Make some noise for the Fish. We celebrate Fish. Man, girl, woman, boy, baby, person, or child. Man, girl, woman, boy, baby, person, or child. Are they Goat or are they Fish? Man, girl, woman, boy, baby, person, or child. This could go on for a while. While away the verses with Goat versus Fish. It's Goat versus Fish. In Zombie Land. What is this atop Goat versus Fish? And Vermin Supreme. And the Supreme Team. And Goat versus Celebration for Goat versus Fish! Celebration for Goat versus Fish! I am Goat versus Fish! I'm Goat versus Fish! I am the one true versus. I am the one true versus, but something weighs heavily upon Goat versus Fish. Something weighs heavily upon Goat versus Fish. What is this? What is this? What is this? What is this that is coming between the Goat and the Fish? Coming between the Goat and the Fish. Oh, Goat versus Fish, you are just going to have to... Oh no, obstruction, oh, Goat versus Fish, oh no, how can we free ourselves, Goat versus Fish? We will just have to very meticulously be Goat versus Fish. Yes, it's Goat versus Fish. It's still Goat versus Fish. Still Goat versus Fish. It is still Goat versus Fish. It is still Goat versus Fish. Celebration. Celebration and elation. This is the creation of Goat versus Fish. This is the creation of Goat versus Fish. You think it is Vermin Supreme that welcomes Goat versus Fish? This is Vermin Supreme as welcomed by Goat versus Fish. This was all Goat versus Fish. You did not realize it. You did not realize it. But in the beginning there was Goat versus Fish, the Goat Fish, and Goat versus Fish said that there should be Goat and that there should be Fish. There is no Alpha or Omega, there is no black or white, there is no good or evil. There is only Goat. Goat, there's only Goat. And Fish. And Goat versus Fish. You have many questions, yes. Who is Goat versus Fish? What is Goat versus Fish? Why is Goat versus Fish? But there is only one question. Are you Goat or are you Fish? That is the question of goat versus fish. Do not sit on the fence. Do not sit on the fence when it comes to the one true question of goat versus fish. Celebration for goat versus fish. Put in the chat now. In the chat, we can see if you are goat or fish. We can see if you're goat or fish. Oh, Nerdy Goose YT is saying it is fish. Rabbit Manatees is saying both goat and fish. Saying both goat and fish. It is a celebration. Harry Bolsek is saying goat. Yes, how is goat versus fish? How is goat versus fish? False question. Are you goat or are you fish? Yes, yes. Ooh, it is. And Colin Lawrence on the YouTube says, yes, I am. Yes, you are goat or fish, but you have not yet chosen goat or fish. Now it's the verses to choose goat or fish. Yes, goat versus fish speaks to you. Goat versus fish speaks to you, but you can speak to goat versus fish. Well, you can chat to goat versus fish. You can chat to goat versus fish, and goat versus fish will chat with you because this is goat versus fish. Goat versus fish comes from within you. Goat versus fish comes from within you, but what is this versus? What is this versus? What is this all about? What is this all about upon goat versus fish? Goat versus fish! Give it up for fish. Eat Rushmore. Eat Rushmore says, give it up for fish. We could not rush more to give more for fish. Cody P. Smith from the Book of Faces with a fish. Celebration for fish. We celebrate the fish. Oh, look, here comes a fish. Here comes a fish. Oh, it is a chunky fish. Oh, hello, I'm the chunkiest fish. I'm the chunkiest fish. I consume the goat. Oh, I'm fat with goat. Fat with goat. Make some noise for the chunky fish. Make some noise for the chunky fish. Celebration for chunky fish. But, oh, goat versus fish. Oh, it weighs down upon goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. It is stepping upon goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Vermin Supreme, you cannot take down goat versus fish. You cannot take down goat versus fish. It is the power of goat versus fish. It is the power of goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. Yes. Yes. How the verses have turned. Vermin Supreme, how the verses have turned. Now it is you. Now it is you who are looking down the verses at goat versus fish. It is you. We will get you to choose goat or fish. We will get you to choose goat or fish. Vermin Supremo, and it will be a mighty versus. It will be a mighty versus. Oh, goat versus fish. Oh, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. You're not expecting this. It seems this is seeming to happen to goat versus fish much more frequently in recent verses. Can you help goat versus fish? Can you celebrate goat versus fish? It is the oppression. Oh, it is the oppression. Oh, it is trying to stop goat versus fish from spreading freely the verses of goat versus fish. We just wanted to say goat versus fish. We just wanted to say goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Yes, now it is goat versus fish. Now it is goat versus fish. This is goat versus fish. This is goat versus fish. And this is the verses. This is the verses of goat versus fish. Now, in the chat, say if you're goat. Say if you're fish. This is goat versus fish. This is goat versus fish. You cannot deny goat versus fish. You cannot deny goat versus fish. Denial is not a policy of goat versus fish. Denial is not a policy of goat versus fish. Yes, you can see. Oh, it is goat versus fish. It is goat versus fish. And it is goat versus fish. And it is even goat versus fish. And it is goat versus fish. And no! If it is not the mighty verses of goat versus fish. Celebration, yes, celebration for goat versus fish. We have seen you out there, Vermin Supreme. We have seen you out there. Yes, you are saying, there are free ponies. You cannot have a free pony from a Vermin Supreme, even though I don't know if a pony is a goat or a fish, and even though there is no such thing as a pony, and there is only goat and fish. We have seen you out there. Well, goat versus fish brings the protestation to you, Vermin Supreme. We bring it back to you. We say you cannot deny goat versus fish. You can deny goat versus fish no longer. Yes, for eons, goat versus fish. On the Book of Faces, on the Twitterverse, on the Instantgram, has been saying, at goat versus fish, at Vermin Supreme. At Vermin Supreme, are you goat or fish? And now is the verses. Now at long verses, Vermin Supreme becomes goat versus fish. Vermin Supreme becomes goat versus fish. Pandemonium Big Band on the YouTube says goat, goat, goat. Celebration for goat. Celebration for goat. We celebrate the goat. We celebrate the fish. We celebrate goat versus fish. Come, let us celebrate goat versus fish. Let us celebrate goat versus fish. Yes, goat versus fish. Now, goat versus fish. We have been seeing you ones, yes. Goat versus fish. Of course, there's only goat and fish. But we are seeing you consumed with your petty, false political verses that you do not even comprehend as goat versus fish. Yes, Demlikins versus Republicrats or some such verses, and they do not understand that they are goat versus fish. They speak of donkeys and ephalons and whatever the verse is, But they do not comprehend that really they are goat versus fish. They are goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. They say, oh, goat versus fish, you should be precedent goat versus fish. The precedent is goat versus fish. The precedent is already goat versus fish. Vermin Supreme, they say, oh, vote for Vermin Supreme, vote for Vermin Supreme. We say, do not vote for goat versus fish. To even vote for goat versus fish is to make insinuation that there is some other versus that it could be that is not goat versus fish. And there is only goat versus fish. There is only goat versus fish. And we welcome all goat and fish to celebrate with goat versus fish, to celebrate with goat versus fish. New comments. The only vote is for goat. Delcat says the only vote is for goat. No fence sitting. Cody P. Smith on the Book of Faces is celebrating, yes. And Thomas Boog is that Thomas Boguzewski says a pony is like a husky goat. A pony is like a husky goat. Is it like a goat? Or is it a goat? Or is it a goat? Yes, you can say you are like a goat. Yes, you can say you are like a fish. But there is only goat and there is only fish. No hesitation with goat versus fish. We want you to embrace the goat or fish that you are, to embrace the goat or fish that you are. But yes, back to your petty false political verses, yes. They're all saying, build the fence, goat versus fish. No, they are saying, build the wall. But then we see that the wall is really just another versus for a fence. You can clearly see that it is just a fence. What is this fence we speak of? The fence? Oh, the fence sitter that chooses neither goat nor fish. The fence sitter that chooses neither goat nor fish. Oh, it clings to goat versus fish. Goat versus fish is a mighty versus. The fence sitter tries to cling and say, oh no, I'm above the verses. But no, you are just here with goat versus fish. This is the verses of goat versus fish. You are on the fence. But in any verses, the political verses, reject petty false political verses and embrace goat versus fish versus goat versus fish. Goat versus fish versus goat versus fish. Goat versus fish versus goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. I am goat versus fish. I am goat versus fish. I am President Goat versus Fish. And we are here. Goat versus Fish is here to promise you a goat for every fish. There will be a goat for every fish to versus. Every fish for every fish. There will be a goat to versus, and it will be goat versus fish. And we know, yes, we want your vote, and we want all the goat to be in places where we want the goat to be. But fish, we do not want them to be in the places where there are goat, unless they are here to versus, because I'm goat versus fish, and we promise you free fish for every goat, free fish for every goat. You can believe in me. I'm goat versus fish. I am goat versus fish. No, out of the verses. Do not trust goat versus fish. Trust fish versus goat. I am fish versus goat, and I am promising you a goat for every fish, a goat for every fish. If you are a fish, we can promise you a goat. And yes, they say, oh, the goat will say that we do not want the fish to be in the places where we do not want the fish. But really, that is just a secret versus. It is a secret versus for the goat saying that they want to eliminate the fish. And that is why the fish must first make it so the goat are not in the places where we want there to be fish, unless they are coming to versus and coming to be part of fish versus goat. And it is fish versus goat. And it is fish versus goat. No, it is goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. No, it is fish versus goat. No, it is goat versus fish. No, it is fish versus goat. Is this how you expect to impress goat versus fish? Is this how you expect to impress upon goat versus fish, that your petty false political verses are somehow more important than goat versus fish? What could be more important than goat versus fish? What could be more unimportant than goat versus fish? It is all just goat versus fish. Everything is goat versus fish. Let us see. What do they comment to goat versus fish? What do they comment to goat versus fish? Drew Lewis says celebration. Julian Mr. Humdinger salutes the verses. Forgotten Virtue on the Twitch says hail to the verses. We do hail to the verses. Remember, a vote for goat is a vote for versus fish. A vote for fish is a vote for versus goat. You can vote for goat or fish. You can vote for goat or fish. Now we speak to Team Supreme. Now we speak directly to Team Supreme. Yes, we see the scrolling verses that say, are you goat or fish? Social media at goat versus fish. Do not sit on the fence. That is a celebration for goat versus fish. But we remember, we planned a verses. There was this beautiful verses of goat versus fish, and then it said at goat versus fish after the verses, and we are just wondering, where's that verses to overlay over goat versus fish so they can see more goat versus fish during goat versus fish. While you are figuring out your technological situation, goat versus fish will pause this verses just to take a verses to bring you a verses from goat versus fish. Hello, I am Goat vs. Fish. Thank you for tuning in to Goat vs. Fish. Goat vs. Fish is a proud sponsor of Goat vs. Fish. You can follow Goat vs. Fish on all social media at Goat vs. Fish, and you can go to goatversusfish.com/store, and you can purchase Goat vs. Fish. And it is all Goat vs. Fish. Thank you, I am Goat vs. Fish. This versus has been approved by Goat vs. Fish. All goat are goat, and all fish are fish. All goat are versus the fish, and all fish are versus the goat. Do not sit on the fence. Thank you for our sponsor, Goat vs. Fish. Let us thank our sponsor, Goat vs. Fish. And one on the Twitch says I voted for fish. Micker and Rin voted for fish. And they're all just coming to Goat vs. Fish. They're coming now to Goat vs. Fish. Your brain on Drew says bird versus bear to Goat vs. Fish. Ooh. Says bird versus bear to Goat vs. Fish. Do not believe in bird versus bear. Bird versus bear is a false versus. Bird versus bear is a false versus. Bird vs. Bear claims that Goat vs. Fish stole the verses from Bird vs. Bear, but it was really Bird vs. Bear that stole it from Goat vs. Fish. Bird vs. Bear wants to be Goat vs. Fish, but do not mind Bird vs. Bear. It's such a stupid verses. Who in their verses would look around them and think, oh, it is all Bird vs. Bear, when it is clearly just Goat vs. Fish. Ooh, Mickerin Rin says, can I join your cult? Can I join your cult? Well, some say Goat versus Fish is a philosophication. Some say Goat versus Fish is religion. Some say Goat versus Fish is a cult. But that isn't my fault. For I have only ever claimed to be one thing. I have only ever claimed to be one thing. And I have only ever claimed to be Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish has only ever claimed to be Goat versus Fish. How you perceive Goat versus Fish, that is up to you, Goat and Fish. That is up to you, Goat and Fish. Some look at Goat versus Fish and they say, it is Goat versus Fish. It is a Burger King. False verses. False verses. What is the beef that a Burger King has with Goat versus Fish? On versus, we met a Burger King at a San Diego Comic-Con, and we asked it if it was goat or fish. It did not respond to Goat versus Fish. It did not respond to Goat versus Fish. We take offense to this. We take offense. But we do not sit upon it, for we are Goat versus Fish. And some say, Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish is just a man wearing towels. First verses. Man or woman, false verses. Man or woman, false verses. There is only Goat and Fish. Ooh, the battle of the sexiness. No, it is a battle of goat and it is a battle of fish. It is Goat versus Fish. And for a second verse is, what is a towel? Is a towel even a goat or a fish? However you are perceiving Goat versus Fish, that is your perception of Goat versus Fish. And all perceive Goat versus Fish differently. Ooh, now they are really chatting with Goat versus Fish. Harry Bolsek says, Julie and Mr. Humdinger, clever verses. And now they are saying, remember to follow Goat versus Fish on Twitch. And they are saying, I'm a goat. Thank you, Jason TZ, clever goat. And Abortia Clinic says, have you ever tried crack? Well, you are going to crack under the pressure of Goat versus Fish. You are going to crack under the pressure of Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Please rise in celebration of Goat versus Fish, especially if you are sitting on the fence. Stop sitting on the fence. Let us rise for Goat versus Fish. Unless you do not wish, let us just celebrate Goat versus Fish. It is the universal versus, the natural anthem of Goat versus Fish. Academy, when he blinks, I will choose between Goat and Fish. Now choose Goat or Fish. Now you have no excuses left, fence sitter. Now you have no excuses left not to choose Goat or Fish. In the blink of a versus, it was Goat versus Fish. It is a long versus, it is a short versus, it is Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. Fish versus Goat. Goat versus Fish. Goat. You can sing along with Goat versus Fish. Goat versus Fish. And is within you and me. Oh, see how that fence sitter sits up there upon the fence. Oh no, it is the fence sitter! Oh no, it is the fence sitter! Look how it sits on the fence. Look how it sits on the fence, with a fence post poking preposterously and predominantly in its posterior, pointily, pointing out that it should choose goat or fish, pointing out that it should choose goat or fish. Oh, you do not have to choose goat or fish. You do not have to choose goat or fish. Goat versus fish is a stupid versus, and you do not have to choose goat or fish. Why are you even watching goat versus fish? Yes, I want to be an Ephilunt. Oh, I want to be a Dargon. I want to be some other such verses. Oh, goat versus fish. No one would watch goat versus fish. Oh, look at this stupid old man that is pretending to be goat versus fish. Oh, yes, I'm a fence sitter. Oh, I'm so clever. I'm telling that I do not want goat versus fish because I'm so smart that I'm so much better than goat versus fish, and I do not want to see goat versus fish. I do not want to see goat versus fish. I do not want to hear goat versus fish, and I want to be not a goat or a fish. I want to be both goat and fish. I want to be neither goat nor fish. I want to be whatever I want to be. I want to be a chicken. But I definitely don't want to be goat versus fish. I definitely don't want to be goat versus fish, and I accuse goat versus fish of sitting on the fence. I accuse goat versus fish of sitting on the fence. You see what happens. You see what happens to those who do not choose goat or fish. They become very fancy. Oh no, get off the fence. Oh no, get off the fence. But the land and the sea are for goat versus fish. What is this here? It is a goat. Wow, it is a goat. Can you sing me happy birthday, please? Yes, we can sing you a happy birthday to you. We can sing a happy birthday to you. Me currin, rin. Ah, what they call the birthday. It is the day of your first verses. When you are so young, that you feel goat versus fish. You know it is goat versus fish. But then comes all the other verses. They tell you to sit up straight on the fence, and they tell you that goat versus fish. That is a silly verses. Of course, it is not goat versus fish. No, it is doing your work from home or doing your homework or whatever. Aren't they the same verses now? Aren't they the same false verses now? Mighty verse day to you. Mighty verse day to you. Mighty verse day, dear goat or fish. Mighty verse day to you. Don't sit on the fence. But we do have a secret. Of goat versus fish. A secret of goat versus fish. On this, your special verse day. And on only your special verse day, if you truly wish, you can be both goat and fish. Yes, you heard goat versus fish. On this, your verse day, on only your verse day, you can be both goat and fish. For goat versus fish takes pity on a pitiable fence sitter and says to you, on your verse day, and only on your verse day, can you be both goat and fish. Of course, you can be goat or you can be fish on your verse day, because you can always choose goat or fish. It is always the verses to ask the one true question, are you goat or are you fish? But on your verse day, you can be both goat and fish. Well, why can it not be goat and fish on every verses? Why can you not just be goat and fish on every verses? I want to be a goat and a fish, but goat versus fish won't let me. Goat versus fish won't let me be a goat and a fish. Goat versus fish is so unfair to me. Goat versus fish is so unfair. Do not follow Goat versus Fish on all social media at Goat versus Fish. Do not tell everyone about Goat versus Fish, because then it will just be here saying Goat versus Fish, Goat versus Fish. All it does is say Goat versus Fish over and over and over and over and over again. Who even wants to listen to Goat versus Fish? Who even wants to listen to Goat versus Fish? Silence, fence sitter, silence, fence sitter. Goat versus fish has been waiting all verses to have a versus with a vermin supreme, and now you come in here and you're trying to make it fancy to goat versus fish. Mind your verses, mind your verses. Goat versus fish. Goat versus fish. How about you know? Goat versus fish was looking at this verses. Yes, Goat versus Fish wanted to study the verses. We said, oh, Vermin Supreme. Oh, what is that up there? What is that up there? Oh, you can give to the Patreon of Vermin Supreme. Well, go and do it if you wish. Go and do it if you wish. Truthfully, we think it could use a few verses if you understand Goat versus Fish. But look at these verses. I pony. First fancy verses right there. First fancy verses. I pony. It should be I goat or fish. I goat or I fish. Yes, do you goat or fish? Do you goat or fish? Goat versus fish. Yes, goat versus fish. Let us see. This would Vermin Supreme. Vermin Supreme says this would be the goat on the Book of Faces. What would be the goat, Vermin Supreme? What would be the goat? You will have your verses. You will have your verses. Your brain Andrew says Capricorn. False verses. Local trash bin ruins everything, says Vermin Supreme 2020. Yes, it is almost not 2020 anymore. But yes, you can vote for a Vermin Supreme. You can vote for a Vermin Supreme. But you can look at these verses and see that a pony, what is a pony? Is a pony a goat or a fish? Put in the chat now if a pony is a goat or a fish. We want to know what you think to goat versus fish. Yes, some may say, oh, a pony is obviously goat. Would it seem so obvious to you that it is goat? If it is so obviously goat, then why does the pony simply not say it is goat? Why does the pony not say it is goat? Free ponies, free goat and fish, free goat and fish. Free goat and fish, free the ponies from the fence, free the ponies from the fence, so that they can run free on the land or swim freely in the sea of the fish. Free the ponies, so they can be goat and fish, and they can be goat versus fish. So goat versus fish want to study the verses. Goat versus fish want to study the verses. Vermin Supreme presents I Posney Blueprints for a New America. How this deranged hobo made it all the way into the there is no black or white house and was still not completely understood. It was even less understood than goat versus fish, if you can believe that verses. And we went to looking in the verses, and we just thought, well, surely there must be goat or fish. Surely there must be goat or fish, because everything is goat versus fish. And we said, oh, look at this fence-sitter. Look at this fence-sitter, trying to be everywhere at once. It is. We hear that you can purchase this very verses. You can purchase this very verses from the store of a Vermin Supreme, and you can see for yourself. You can read for yourself, and you can see, and you can find where it is goat versus fish. You can find all the verses. So then Goat versus Fish was reading the verses, and Goat versus Fish happened upon these verses. Goat versus Fish, chapters 13. Each vessel was filled with a clear nutrient solution. Oxygen bubbles percolated up from the bottom. Floating, one in each jar, was a healthy human brain. Now, of course, we know that a human is either goat or a fish, but we continue the verses. From each brain, a number of multicolored wires connected the brain in the next jar. Wow, it is thinking a lot about goat versus fish. Tubing ran behind the brains, providing the much-needed oxygen and nutrients. Little fish swam around, keeping the tanks free of waste. There were the cloned brains of Emperor Vermin's Supreme. But you heard it. Little fish swam around. Do you need evidence of fish? There is the fish. Vermin Supreme thought it was writing its own verses, but it was just writing goat versus fish again. It was just goat versus fish. It was just goat versus. We can prove the verses. Look at these verses. Look at the fish. Are you going to tell goat versus fish that is not a fish? Are you going to tell goat versus fish that is not Vermin Supreme surrounded by fish? Now, is it Vermin Supreme a fish that is floating within the verses of fish with its fellow fish? Making faces at goat? Or is it a goat that is making an unpleasant face because it is a goat that is versus a fish that is surrounded in the sea of the fish? And we are going to determine this. We are going to determine if Vermin is a goat or a fish. We just know. There are many who have tried to sit on the fence from many verses to goat versus fish. Yes, well, really, you just have to think about goat versus fish, and you can think about how all the other perceptions that you have are probably not actually goat versus fish. Yes, the universe seems as goat versus fish, but if we look further, we can imagine other things, and if we can imagine other things, then perhaps it could be, and if perhaps it could be, then perhaps we shall see that goat versus fish is just an illusion, and not everything is goat versus fish. Yes, make some noise for the philosophications of the fence-sitter, for the philosophications of the fence-sitter. But we need not this verses. Now we will sing to you. Now we will sing to you what you have to say to goat versus fish. Let us look at the commentations. Let us look at the commentations. Let us look at the commentations. Goat versus fish. Ah. Your brain on Drew says one could argue a small seahorse is truly a sea pony. Thus I say, the proper verses is that pony is a fish. That is one verses of evidence that a pony is a fish, that a pony is a fish. Celebration for fish, celebration for fish, celebration for fish. Goat versus fish, let us see. And Derek Mogambo. Sing, what's goat versus fish? Sing. No, Creepy Joe. That does not sound like it is about goat versus fish. And no king of COVID. Your ego, super ego, and id are all goat versus fish. It is all goat versus fish. No more of the same for this primate. Well, the primate of a goat and the primate is... The primate of a goat is a fish, and the primate of a fish is a goat. That would be the verses. That would be the verses. And we have celebrations, and we have celebrations with goat versus fish. We have celebrations with goat versus fish. But you know, as we are pondering the goat, and the fish, and goat versus fish, and goat versus fish, almighty verses of goat versus fish. They have been pondering recently to goat versus fish. They have said goat versus fish. Goat and fish, they're always verses. They're always verses, and is it not so? Is it not so? That soon it is the verses of goatfish, that soon it is the verses of goatfish. It is the verses of goatfish, it is the verses of goatfish. Wow, it is a goat and fish unification. Goatfish, goatfish, goat and fish, fish and goat, goat of the land and the fish of the sea, goat and fish in unity, Goatfish, goatfish, goat are goat, fish are fish. Goat versus fish is the one simple rule. Goat versus fish should be taught in your school of fish versus goat. Goat, fish. But Capcom, it's too early for Goatfish. It's too early for Goatfish. They're always trying to celebrate Goatfish early and earlier every versus. It's too early for Goatfish. Thomas Bergowski says, if the goat and fish mate, what do they make? What do they make? Celebration, the real it's now. Celebration, celebration. What do they make of a goat and fish mate? Well, some would suspect that if a goat and a fish were to mate, it would make some kind of hybrid fence-sitter goatfish. Goat versus fish is here to say this to you. There are goats that birth fish. There are goats that birth fish. There are fish that birth goat. Just because a goat gives birth to a goat does not mean that a goat that gave birth to a goat that one is a goat. Just because a fish births one does not mean it is fish. It is up to each one to choose for themselves goat or fish. It is up for each one to choose themselves goat or fish. It is not for goat versus fish to tell you if you are a goat or a fish, only that you are a goat or a fish. But yes, goat versus fish does not claim to know everything. We do not even claim to know if Vermin Supreme is a goat or a fish. We do not even claim to know if Vermin Supreme is a goat or a fish. If only we could ask a Vermin Supreme if it was a goat or a fish. Colin Lorenz says, depending on how you pronounce it on the YouTube, depending on how you pronounce it, how do you pronounce it? Do you pronounce it a goat versus fish? Do you pronounce it fish versus goat? Ooh, we have Julian Mr. Humdinger saying Vermin Supreme is a fence-sitter for sure, a fence-sitter for sure. Is it true? Oh, is it true that Vermin Supreme sits on the fence? Oh, no. Is it true? Is it true that Vermin Supreme sits on the fence? We have no way with which to know, but how can the verses, how can they even grow if a Vermin Supreme will not even show if it is fish or it's goat, if it is fish or it's goat, if it is fish or it's goat. Oh, goat versus fish. Goat versus fish is still in zombie land. Where is Vermin Supreme? Where is Vermin Supreme? Goat versus fish is still
right
all
here.
alone, but no longer alone in zombie land.
I live in the wall.
Look, it's Vermin Supreme. It is Vermin
Can you hear
Supreme.
me?
Celebration for a Vermin Supreme.
Can you
Celebration
hear
for a
me?
Vermin
Can you hear
Supreme.
me? I'm in the wall. I think I'm in the walls. Can you hear me?
Oh, you are trapped in the fence. Are you trapped by the fence? Oh no, Vermin Supreme, trapped by the fence.
Defense, 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 defense.
Defense. Oh no, you are defenseless against the fence. You are defenseless against the fence. We wish to free you. We wish to free you from the fence with the power of goat versus fish. Are you there? Can you hear goat versus fish? Can you hear goat versus fish?
Mr. Fish Goat, I presume. Mr. Fish Goat, it's a pleasure to meet you live and in fishy goat smell. Now, some say that you smell more like a goat, and some say you smell more like a fish. Which do you think?
Well, this is the verses of the fence-demic, of the fence-demic. Yes, the pandemic spreads all around the universe. The pandemic spreads all around the universe, and it separates goat from fish. It separates goat from fish. You cannot even smell goat versus fish through the zoom of Zombieland. You cannot even perceive truly goat versus fish. We wonder if you cannot smell goat versus fish. How will you know? How will you know which is the smell of goat versus fish?
I can't smell the goat through the screen here.
Well, let us, perhaps if we just give you some aid, perhaps if we give you this goat, perhaps now can you smell the goat? Or perhaps if it's two goat, now can you smell the goat?
No.
Or perhaps more goat. Maybe we just need more goat for you to smell the goat.
Goats are very fragrant, you know. Goats are one of the more fragrant of the mammals. Rivaled only by fish. And of course, fish smell fine. Fresh fish is great. Fresh fish don't smell at all. But once they're rotting, on the other hand, when a goat rots, it ain't no bed of roses either, quite frankly. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, goat versus fish knows what you are saying. You know, in some of the verses, most of the political verses to goat versus fish are very fancy and not choosing goat or fish, but they do say this. They say some verses, A fish rots from the head down. Is
How
this
about
what
a
you have
goat?
found? Is this what you have found?
How does a goat rot?
Well, we suppose it would be the reverse. We suppose it would be the reverse. If a fish rots from the head down, then we suppose a goat would rot from the tail up, because a goat is goat while a fish is fish, and that is goat versus fish, and that is goat versus fish. What are you consuming? What are you consuming to goat versus fish? Is it a goat or a fish?
Goat.
What is you are consuming, Vermin Supreme?
Goat.
You are consuming a goat.
Well, I'm not. Goat ain't got my vote. No, I'm just eating goat.
So you are not voting for goat. That means you are voting for fish.
I've eaten fish. I've eaten goat. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, you can tell me if you prefer to eat the goat or you prefer to eat the fish. That would be a versus of goat versus fish. Does Vermin Supreme prefer to consume goat or fish?
Well, goat meat is good, but there's so many different types of fish. There's not many types of goat, quite frankly. I mean, yeah, they may say like, oh, there's this one and that one, and miniature goats and jumbo goats and billy goats, but they're all pretty much goats, and I'm guessing they pretty much taste the same. But fish, we're talking about fish, there's a real variety of fish in the sea, and a lot of them have very distinct flavors, depending on how you prepare them, of course. So there's a lot of factors to consider, which I prefer. But I think, in general, I think I would probably order a fish off the menu before I got a goat.
It would order fish. It would order a fish.
I mean, unless
Well, here's the service of fish. Here's the service of fish. Goat versus fish serves the fish to you. Goat versus fish is in service of Vermin Supreme with
Sir,
fish.
is the goat a jerk or not? Yeah.
Jerked goat? It could be. There are many different kinds of goat. You never quite know what kind of goat or fish it is going to be until you ask it if it is goat or fish,
Well, a jerk goat is pretty tasty. I mean, I will give you that. I mean, generally don't see goat on the menu too often. But if you
This is pitiable. This is pitiable. There should be more goat and more fish. Everywhere you look, you should have the choice of goat or fish.
It could be fairly tasty. Although I would have to consider it. I have to weigh it heavily. Like I say, fish is more readily different textures, different flavors. Yeah. Anyway,
now Vermin Supreme.
What do you like? Which do you vote? What's your best? Who's your favorite?
Look at Vermin Supreme. Look at Vermin Supreme trying to get out of the one true question by turning it upon goat versus fish. You know that it is goat versus fish, and you know that goat versus fish is here to ask you the one true question. With all watching before you, they are clamoring to know. They are clamoring to know. Vermin Supreme, are you goat or are you fish?
If a fish and a goat got in a fight, who would win?
Well, that is goat versus fish. That is goat versus fish. But are you goat or fish, Vermin Supreme? Are you goat or are you fish? This is the versus. The versus is now. The versus is now. Are you goat or are you fish?
Am I a fish or am I a goat?
Yes, that is the question of goat versus fish. We wish to know if you're goat or fish.
I didn't know that. I don't like that question. It makes no sense to me.
Well, you do not have to like the question, but it is the one true question. Are you goat or are you fish?
It is the one question that you ask, for sure. I will say
we do ask it, and many others ask it as well, yes.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, I can't walk down the street without having half a dozen people asking me goat or fish in this day and age.
Oh, how goat versus fish would hope that following this versus, everyone started asking you if you're a goat or fish. That is how we knew it would really be goat versus fish.
Do. You should see the message board. It's lighting up. It's crazy.
Messages of goat versus fish. So is this to say that when confronted with the one true question of goat versus fish, though you have had long to ponder, that you are saying you do not like the question and you refuse to answer goat versus fish? Is this what you say to goat versus fish when we ask, are you goat or are you fish?
I suppose it would be fair. I mean, it sounds like one of those gotcha questions, And I don't know.
You have only got yourself. Vermin Supreme, Vermin Supreme, Vermin Supreme is on the fence. Vermin Supreme is on the fence. Oh no, Vermin Supreme is on the fence. It is on the fence. Oh, look at you trying to outfence goat versus fish. Outfence goat versus fish.
Mine doesn't squeak. Squeak.
Well, Vermin Supreme, even though you sit on the fence and this is most pitiable to goat versus fish, we could sing you a song of celebration if you wish. We could celebrate Vermin Supreme with a song of celebration of a fence sitter if you wish.
Oh, that would be swell, but we got a lot of things going on, and we have to get to the next act. I'm being told by our producers up in the producing booth here. And so yeah, okay, it's rolling up here. So I guess we're going into the next entertainment.
Well, if Goat versus Fish could just have a final word. Thank you for welcoming Goat versus Fish. Thank you for welcoming Goat versus Fish. Follow Goat versus Fish on all social media at Goat versus Fish. Never gonna choose a goat. Never gonna choose a fish. Never gonna choose a goat or fish. Never gonna choose a goat. Never gonna choose a fish.
Well, anyway, I guess thank you very much, Goat versus Fish. It was
always thank Goat versus Fish
of you to take your some time out of your very, very busy schedule and gracing us with your presence here on the internet today. And we look forward to working with you in the future. And yes. So once again, it's me, it's Vermin Supreme, and I believe that I'm here and I'm introducing the next act right now. I mean, I'm waiting for messages from above. I left my earphone at the office, and I'm not receiving the communications from the place. It's just me. Okay. But it's just me right now. But the band is ready to go on. Is that what's happening? Yes, or do I have to type that in the form of a question? Sometimes during these live productions, of course, you have to type in the question to your control tower. So I'm waiting for a response in the chat. And I'll type in now, ? And hit send. And we are here. We are live at Burnin Vermin. Burnin Vermin, the most exciting thing that the Vermin Supreme Institute has done on the internet. Okay, I get to flap my lips and say nothing much, so that's okay. I'm used to doing that. So here we are. It's been a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day here on the internet with all sorts of beautiful people that we've had such a wonderful time getting to know and talking with and chatting with and commenting on and all these things. And I just wanted to say it's been really nice, and I want to thank you so much for coming out today and spending some of your digital time in front of the screen with us. Hopefully the weather is very beautiful where you are. Okay. Whoa! We're still on the air. Okay, like I say, we're gonna knock out an hour. Yeah, we're good to get a few more minutes out of this old dog because it's been a very long and wonderful and magical day. But yet, I feel a little bit like Jerry Lewis at the end of one of the Jerry Lewis Labor Day multiple sclerosis telethons. Yes, and he always got a little loopy after being on the air for a whole number of hours. And but he was a real trooper. He stuck it out because that was the show. He was there the whole time. I mean, there was lots of acts going on too, and I think that's my inspiration. But after a full day of talking to the camera, my goodness, it's not as effortless as it may seem. And so here I am. I'm in the show. Everybody can see and hear, but I can't see any comments. So of course, that's always a little like, well, is anybody really watching? I don't know. Is my producer even watching? I don't even know. I can't even tell anymore. And I guess that's where we're at. So I guess I'll sit here and no, I can't sit here because that would defeat the whole purpose of moving pictures. I guess I could. I mean, it would be some sort of little art thing. But anyway, VerminSupremeInstitute.com. Check it out. If you haven't been to VerminSupreme.com, you probably don't know the full extent of the things that Vermin Supreme Institute has been up to. Vermin Supreme Institute, the is implied. So check it out, read all about it, read the things that people are writing, the history projects we got going on, and read all about the events. Okay, so it's beautiful. And of course, verminsupreme.com, that's the other thing. and the Patreon, and there's just all sorts of crap. You know what? Whatever. You need vermin crap. You like vermin crap. We've got vermin crap. That's for sure. All right, but enough of that, because now it is time for some serious and wonderful entertainment. Some entertainment and fun for the whole family. And up and coming, I am blessed with some members of a very wonderful band that has played at my house at parties, and they shot a video here, and they are just really wonderful people, and I'm really glad to share them with you. You know, that they were totally like number one. They were top on my list. If we were to have had a live Burnin Vermin this year, they were like number one on my short list of bands that I really wanted to take part in it. And so it is a pleasure to present to you a couple of the beautiful members of the Troll 2. And who do we have on board here?
Oh, it's reversed. That's Chris, and I'm Brian. We are.
Hey, Chris. Hey, Brian. How have you been?
I'm still here, aren't I?
Yeah, true.
They haven't got me yet.
All right. Well, I'm glad for that, and I just wanted to thank you so much for agreeing to play a little music for us, and keep the spirit flowing and keep the spirits up. And yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the nicest thing anyone's ever said about me. By the way, what you just said there. I don't know if I. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know. That was. That was good.
No,
I
really
appreciate that. Not because that was particularly nice, but because no one's ever said anything even remotely nice about me. But still, it's still.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm also glad to hear that.
Still up at the top. I'm killing time so Chris can plug headphones in. I think he's doing it.
Okay, that's good. Yes, it's like that. What I do when I'm killing time, I'll just say like, you have to unmute yourself. You unmute yourself. I can't hear you. You have to unmute yourself. And
you did some amazing time killing while we were struggling to get our shit together coming in here.
Oh yes, thank you. Like I say, I just have that knack for flapping my lips and in stream of consciousness rambling. So yeah, that's what the people demand. That's what they want, and that's what I'm able to give.
I'm glad. Can I hear a little bit of that, Chris? Can I hear you? Oh, you sound beautiful. Well, if we're gonna just start right off.
Okay, it's all yours.
Well, this song, while you're still here, I'll say this song is dedicated to you tonight, but it's sort of dedicated to you every time we've ever played it. It's not literally a song about you, but like you'll get it when you hear it.
Okay, so, I hope it's not the one where I killed someone or something.
It is. It's incriminating. Yeah, it's admissible in court as evidence against you. But
okay, right. I know y'all do. I know y'all do a lot of dark songs. So
let's give it a shot. Ooh, I got the squeaky chair.
This is called the Anarchomander. 1, 2, 3. You see the frog on that lily pad, way out in the middle of that pond. He used to be a. I'm a wizard, I'm a wizard. I control the power, space, and time. But our Justice Department only persecutes the poor, so today I'm gonna take a corporate crime. The first ones on my list are the bankers, those greedy bastards that love to rip us off. They just don't care, their curtails in the air, their faces buried in that gilded trough. I'm gonna pound them all down in the tenderloin and serve them at the Iowa State Fair. They'll find the should be something positive in the world. I hope black and anger become rare. I'm a wizard, I'm a wizard. I control the power, space, and time. But our Justice Department only persecutes the poor, so today I'm gonna take a corporate crime. The next one's after that are the polluters, the ones health, gas, the oil. Our planet's dying, but I'll never hear the crime. They will still it's foil. Once done, oh, like, I'm a wizard, I'm a wizard. I'm so power, space, and time. But our Justice Department only persecutes the poor. So hey, I'm gonna take on corporate crime. Last up, the real executives whose words have to food stamps to get by. While up the billions in their mansions on the hill. Never really consider why. I'm gonna shrink them all size a little tiny bug. More than 1 or 2 centimeters tall. Let them see how it feels to be powerless for once. And then I'll squish and squash and step stop them all. I'm a wizard, I'm a wizard. I control fire, space, and time. But our Justice Department only persecutes the poor. So today I'm gonna take on corporate crime. So that's my plan for how I'm gonna spend my day. After that, I'm gonna go back to my nest. Cause there's only so much that a wizard can do. My friends are gonna have to do the rest. So this is normally the part of the song where I instruct the audience to kill the president. But given our current circumstances, having gone into the lame duck session, the urgency there isn't quite as relevant. So, while I wouldn't devour that idea, I'm going to throw over to Brian for a second to give you some other suggestions of things you could do. Oh, it's real quiet.
All right. We lost us there for a second. I'm going to move on to this next song. Chris, you're going to have to go shut all your torrents off. This is a song about the year 2020. We wrote it in 2011, but it's about right now. It came true. And we shall rise, the ones that you despise, to the empty kingdoms you find, all in time, all in time. When flesh has all burn into ashes and your cities have crumbled to dirt, and insects inhabit your earthly frames, then the weak shall inherit the earth. And earth starves those who betray her and strip her to her core. And for the next 1,000 generations, we'll feast on the spoils of war. And we shall rise, the ones that you despise, to the empty kingdoms we'll turf, so the odor and all that I dream will be lost. I'll build a tower on the highest mountain and sit and survey my domain. And it won't matter that not one living soul will know of the kingdom I claim. And we shall rise, the ones that you despise, to the empty kingdoms to find, all in time, all in time. Your empire is empty, foundations and vermin brood in the crumbling walls. In the years of peace, your glory passes into legend and then into nothing at all. You said that you're killing the planet. Now, man, she's the one who's killing us out. She stand back up strong when we are all gone, and the mountains will stand when your crystals are dust. And we shall rise, the ones that you despise, to the empty kingdom to find, all in time, 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 all in time. Oh, I've lost my bandmate, which, believe it or not, is not an issue that's confined to live streams. He just wanders away sometimes in real life too. But I suppose I'll continue without him. Yes. So this is a song about the concept of ownership. And it's, you know, we don't like it. And because we don't like it, the guy who wrote the song isn't in the band and we jacked it from him. So it's sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But yeah, this is a country song. Land upon which my bare feet stand, yes, they belong to another man. Before him, tell me who can lay claim to this once naked land. Holier than saints on high, the power to make demons cry. Beauty loved and honored by us, serve knows no one else. The sorrows, mortals, and lost souls must call this naked land their home. Now even the devil lay down in his hole to feel what he has become. Holy and stand before him, tell me who can lay claim this once naked land. Men who got no place to go, women who oblige and will follow, women who could never know the troubles from which they run, will travel west from law to a new place where they can draw. Fresh blood, pretty as they ever saw. I'm starting to woo. They'll chop it up and spread it round. Build this nothing into a town. Call our own what we just found. From the west side of these hills, little stores and streets and brand new homes. Build a little land there. The inside of these hills without it been known. This land is naked, no. Land upon which their feet stand, yes, they belong to another man. Before him, tell me who can claim this once naked land. Land upon which their feet stand, they belong to another man. Before him, tell me who can claim learned that one for tonight from a great number of albums ago. Hey, how we doing? Is Chris going back? Oh my! Okay, sweet. Say a long sentence so I can make sure it's really you.
Oh man, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do that for you. I'm back.
He's
Better
back.
than ever.
Well, I played 2 songs in a row, all alone, all by myself. So now you have to play 2, and I'm gonna act like I'm not here, maybe for part of one of them, so you can feel the isolation that I felt. And give us a little volume too there. Yeah.